Hello, everyone. This is Toni Weel from beautiful Florida. It's sunny. It's in the 70s, and it's gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Good time to be outside. Good day to be outside. It's going to be even a little warmer today. I think close to 80 degrees. Well, we like that. And we have with us today Sara from Virtuous Unicorns. I think in cold Ohio, isn't it?
Well, cold for you, but nice day for us.
And we have Carrie Parent, who is in Arizona, and I know the nights are cool there, but the days on during the day it's nice. Katie couldn't make it today. She had some kitchen problems, so she has the workers out there, too much noise, and they need her attention. So we wish her well, that it's an easy fix for her, whatever needs to be done. And we have a guest with us, Luccas LaQuintini. I love that last name, LaQuintini,
Thank you.
from Brazil. And he is the author of several books. He has been on our podcast twice before, talking about things, but I think it's already 2 years ago. And since then, he wrote a whole bunch of more books. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to get this in front of more people because it is so helpful with what he is writing, and he has such a beautiful way of writing. And when I saw that, like moving on from how to eat or what to eat to fasting, and I think one of the first books that I read from him was about fasting, and to a Breatharian game plan. And I was like, yeah, it's now really time to get him on again. In the meantime, he has written quite a few other books too. And I think one of and it wasn't even a book, it was actually the self-empowerment writings that I was like, okay, I need to get this out to my clients. And everything is so well written, and it's Lucas, I have to admit, I follow all your posts and on Facebook, and they are always spot on.
Thank
So
you.
for people listening here, it is like, please go to Lucas's Facebook, and the link is at the bottom of the description, and follow him. He has all his books listed there. It's the one. Oh, what was it? The self-mastery, the reclaiming of freedom, mindful eating,
Reclamation of freedom.
reclamation of freedom. Yeah, I was looking at your Facebook page and I barely could read it. And the leap of faith, and the Breatharian game plan, and I cannot read the rest of it. God, do I need new glasses, or do I have to make this bigger?
Oh,
Oh,
I think the image is small.
the fasting manual. I haven't read that one yet. So, and the foundation, was it the foundation of health? I think so.
Yes. I
Yeah.
think that was the first book that we talked about,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah. So you have come a long way with what you have been doing into uh I just read the mindful eating, and I was like, there you go. We have a step-by-step plan. It's it is so easy. Now, I saw that you also do consultations, which is awesome. And but tell me more about it. This has been a few years that you started all of this, that you started working on yourself. And I remember you had skin issues. And
Mhm.
so what make you go in this direction of the different diet, actually?
Okay. Thank you for inviting me to be here again. Greetings to everyone listening. And I think I should thank you like 7 or 11 times for that introduction, but I didn't want to interrupt you. So um, it feels very comfortable being here being well received. And I could read the names of the books afterwards if you think it would be interesting to you. I would just like to point out that I do like to make them as simple and coherent, practical as possible. So I say I have written 8 books, but it's more like many of them are kind of on the short end of it, so they're easy reads. As far as my history goes, I had very bad skin issues. That was the main issue. And I had a pretty normal diet until 2014, give or take. And it was a combination of factors because I had done all of the antibiotics and lotions and everything standard, and nothing really solved it. And I started practicing yoga at that time, so I was kind of starting to be exposed to different ideas. And it was just a friend that actually introduced me to the thought that, what you eat actually could have an impact on your health. And I was just mind blown at the time because I never had really stopped to think about it, just a normal person having a normal life. And then I started looking into it and became pretty obvious to me that the grains and the dairy in particular, some processed foods could have to do with the acne issue. So I started going into it because of that. It was mostly because of the skin issues and health. And then I was starting to practice yoga. So the whole vegetarian thing kind of was brought to my mind too. And that's what started getting me on this path. And then I think it was at the end of 2016 that I found John Rose on YouTube and was introduced to the whole raw vegan and juicing aspect of it. I think it was on January of 2017 that I brought my first juicer and started experimenting with that. And then one thing kind of led to another until we're here. So I'm not sure which point of it would you like me to focus upon or talk more about?
Well, I have always a funny way of when I start reading a book, I just open a book anywhere, can be any page. I never start in the beginning. And I always feel that that particular page I'm guided to read. So while you were talking, I had a printout, and I know I have the physical book somewhere too, but not near right now, because I have this book, a little book on fasting. I just open it up and I see that you don't have page numbers on there, so I cannot tell you what page it is.
I
Um,
fixed that. Uh,
I,
sorry, you
yeah,
did mention that, and I took that into account on the following
yeah,
one. Thank
yeah,
you for bringing that up.
but I wanna read a piece because that is so in my mind, and I talk about it so often. It is like there is no right way to detox and transform oneself. Therefore, we should each strive to do it in our own way. Sincerity is one of the most important things to practice. It seems to me that most people are not really scared of starvation as much as they are concerned with either the idea of losing muscle or not having their fix, which would result in facing reality and who they really are without a distraction or a buffer in between. Many are actually afraid of realizing their true potential, as power and responsibility, the ability to respond, are directly proportional to one another. As much as the tongue and the brain may enjoy certain textures and flavors, the rest of our organs have a very different opinion. In particular, regarding the sacrifice of a clear mind and internal peace. The more often I went into fast longer than a week, the more certain I became that chewing food is overrated. Nothing tastes as good as being healthy, light, and alive feels like. Artificial, externally induced highs will never beat natural, internally generated highs. The latter are sustainable, long-lasting, and free. And this part just stood out, and it was especially in the second paragraph where you say, as much as the tongue and the brain may enjoy certain textures and flavors, the rest of our organs have a very different opinion. This is an you word it really, really nice. I used to say, you know, it's like my taste buds don't really agree with the rest of my body, which is exactly what it is. So I just had to, you know, I just had to get to this to this point. I thought it was very interesting because that is actually what a lot of people struggle with. And it is, yeah, you could say it is habits, but I do find myself often go to food that I absolutely love to eat, and then after eating it, I feel horrible. And that is something that I know a lot of people experience.
Yes. Yeah, think it's safe to say that everyone does. It's I would say there are two main things that stand out to me. First, I love the how you go about with books. It's almost like using it as a tool for divination, right? Like people have their cards or everything. It's always interesting to see how the universe can show us what we need to right now if we follow our intuition. But regarding food, I think a lot of it has to do with emotions. Um, you know, in traditional Chinese medicine, I believe they associate different emotions with different flavors and also different organs. So it also goes back to when we were younger, you know, when we were introduced to these different substances. And I think it's very common for a parent to just give their children something to eat so they stop bothering them or stop, you know, throwing a tantrum or something. And I think it really starts there. We start developing this unhealthy relationship with food. And we often use it to cope with different emotions or the struggles of life. And not even the struggles of life itself, because most of us are living in cities, right? So we have all of these artificial issues, like we were briefly talking about before. There's noise everywhere, there's pollution, and sometimes life just gets stressful, and we have been kind of conditioned to use food as a way to deal with that. I think even like quite literally, if we eat more dense foods, I'm not even sure we can call them foods, but anyway, um, our body becomes more dense, right? There's inflammation, there's water weight retention, and I think that literally creates like a buffer between us and all of these noises and electromagnetic issues and pollutions of all sorts, like creating a barrier between us and this unhealthy environment that we're living in, and then kind of makes it easier to be in it. But in truth, we are kind of suffering all along, right? Our bodies, there's inflammation everywhere, there's our organs are hurting. We're just sort of in denial about it. That's more or less how I see it. And obviously, there's the addictive nature of many of these substances, in particular the more artificial ones. But I think even if we go to like dairy and grains, I think they have some substances that I think it's called um not endorphins, it's exorphins or something. Like they mimic some of our endorphins. So they really are drug like in a sense, as far as what they the chemical changes that it create in our body. So it really creates dependence. And then the whole thing just spirals out of control as we keep getting older and repeating these cycles over and over. And I think that's where most of us find ourselves at, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. It's and it definitely not is not the easiest journey, although I have to say the first 7 months I felt light, but that was when I start feeling better because I was in such a bad shape. And it was and I'm getting now to the part of what you say with your book and mindful eating. It it became more intuitive, but with something that traumatic that happened, I was back at square one, and that is what we actually keep dealing with. And I haven't read your self-mastery handbook. Can you tell me a bit more about that?
Oh, okay. That one was very inspiration driven. I think I wrote it during a full moon, and I took many of my personal drafts into it. I basically talk about a bunch of things that someone could do to just master themselves, and that's the title, right? It could be anywhere from fasting for a day or practicing breathing exercises. I talk a little bit of, well, physical exercises as well. I just go, the book is very easy to read, and you could do what you said about just jumping to any page and seeing what comes up, because I just threw ideas one after the other to really expose the reader to different perspectives and different ways of mastering themselves. And but the main focus really is awareness, and especially awareness of our breath, our posture, and our attitude through life, and just showing how different tools can be used to practice and master these things. Because I really see that as the foundation for everything. If we're aware of our posture, our attitude, our tone of voice, the way we are interacting with the world, I think we have the leverage to address any situation that arises. And I also think that the more we're connected with our breath, the more we're connected not only with what's going on inside of our body, but also it helps to have a clear mind, more stability as far as our emotions go. And I also see it as a way of enhancing our connection to our intuition. And I love that you brought that up, because this really is what it is for me. As much as I have read other books and seen other people's stories, when it comes to application of this information and where I'm going, it's all intuition. I meditate every morning, and that's where I get most of my insights from. And I just see that the healthier I am, the cleaner the body is, the more I can return to that silence, the more everything starts to not even make sense. Well, sometimes it does, but sometimes I just get that intuitive, that idea, that urge, that inspiration to do something, and things make sense in hindsight. So it really is what I like to point out the most, to use our breathing as a way of centering and calibrating ourselves and connecting to our intuition, and then just going from there. Because I
Well,
do believe we have access to this guidance, if you will, and you just have to remember how to listen to it.
very, very true, and I'm happy that you bring that up. I've known since my teenage years, late teenage years, I learned about meditation, but I thought I can't do it. My mind always goes a mile a minute, and I was told you have to quiet your mind, and it just didn't happen. So I was like, I gave up on it. And throughout the years, when something happened, I felt bad. I always did the deep breathing, so I knew, and it was not even consciously, it was intuitive, It had an accident, and intuitively you started a different way of breathing, actually the deep breathing, to get through it. And that's why I was so happy that Gary keeps pointing that out, how important it is for your health. And also that you just touched upon, Luccas, was actually to say it really simple, be aware of your thoughts because your body is listening. And
Exactly.
yeah, Gary, would you like to add something?
No, I mean, I'm enjoying it so far. So well, I did have a question. How long did it take before you were true to your diet? Was there a transition there where you kept going back to the old stuff? And uh, that was one of my questions was, you know, so you shifted into a new diet. how long did it take to break away from the old one?
Yeah, that's a good one. Um, I did go back and forth many times, although I like to think there are different stages of it. For instance, throughout 2014 and 15, I started eating less animals and processed foods. And at the end of 2015, I did stop altogether with meat and many other things. It was the cooked foods in general that took a little longer. And I did go back and forth many times throughout the years. It was interesting because there were periods where I would go and live on raw foods, fruits and vegetables, a few nuts and seeds for a few months. Then I would slip back in. Then I would do it again, slip back in. I think if we're gonna be sincere about it, it was only in the few recent years, maybe 2022, because in 2021 I did that big 100-day juice feast, and that was very transformative to me. But I also became more aware of these emotional factors to it, stored emotions and things from our past that usually come up when we're detoxing and fasting. And I also realized that I wasn't completely comfortable adopting a completely 100% raw vegan diet. It was challenging on the emotional side. And I realized that there were still things that I wanted to experience and make sense out of. And in many ways, I retoxed a little in 2021 and 2022 until I kind of snap out of it again and realized that things had started going a little out of control. So I can say it was in 2023 that I finally realized that I didn't want to tiptoe around that anymore. And just to clarify, during this whole time, I was eating one meal a day, and I was periodically water or juice fasting for a few days or even a few weeks. But then every now and then, I would have maybe one cooked food, one cooked meal, and then a few others on that week. And it was that back and forth that you mentioned. But what I saw happening throughout the years was that the ratios were changing. You know, if that happened in 2018 and they ended up eating a lot of cooked food for 2 months, maybe in 2021 or 2022, I would eat maybe a few cooked meals for 3 or 4 days, and then I would go back to raw foods and juicing. So it was the ratios over time were changing. I wouldn't, if I fell off track, so to speak, I wouldn't stay off track for as long. And I really think that the breathing and the meditative practices every morning to cultivate that awareness of what was going on inside of the body also made it easier. Because like we were talking before, I really see the food thing more as an emotional thing more than everything. Because, well, what we were talking about before, right? And the tongue and maybe the brain, like they seem to enjoy these sensorial experiences, but then I would realize next morning in my meditation and doing the deep breathing, like my body's not well, my body's not happy with what I did yesterday, right? So little by little, it became more difficult to lie to myself or be in denial about it. But it still has been a challenge. Sometimes, well, not so much now, but recently, I would say that it would still be easy to get tempted, family gatherings and everything. It's I see it as a many years, maybe a few decades, even if we consider the process of undoing several decades of suboptimal lifestyle choices.
So,
So yes,
so
it took many years.
yeah. So here's a question that you just brought up here for me. So, does your family give you a hard time because you're not eating the food they're eating? Would you have any advice for people who have that experience?
I think I was very lucky in that regard because of my gentle nature, I
Hmm.
never really liked to create conflict. And one thing that I learned many years ago is that the less we judge other people, the less we get judged.
Hmm.
Not always, but um, they did a little, but they also were more so on the playful side of it. And I just kind of brushed it off, you know, I just played along with it. And since I wasn't very responsive to it, I think they just started leaving me alone in that sense.
Okay.
So I do think I was lucky that my family was accommodating of that. But at the same time, they would always be offering things, right? Tempting you. Are you sure you don't want to do that? Or then they did that dessert that you loved before. And are you sure you're not going to eat? So it wasn't so much them being harsh as them being like tempting me to go back, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Uh, so what would you say the biggest wake up call in your journey has been?
Wow. Hmm. I really have to say that a link to John Rose. I'm not sure if everyone is familiar with him.
Yeah, I am John Rhodes. Yeah.
Yeah, the whole thing about the average person is walking around with a lot of filth inside of them, right? I'm gonna say
Right.
some backed up mules, and that really was an eye opener for me because when I went on juices for more than a week and I saw that I was still eliminating things, it really clicked for me. Like, oh, we're all feeling miserable. We're all feeling like shit because we're literally full of shit, right? And I think that was the biggest thing for me because whenever I struggled or had a difficulty, and especially connecting to the yoga and the breathing exercises, I started to become very aware of the inside of our bodies. So I started to notice, oh, there are some blockages here and pressure there. So it became very clear to me that the body wasn't entirely clean. And if the body was not entirely clean, then everything was biased in a way, like our perspective. Some people like to say that this diet didn't work for them or anything, but they didn't really cleanse their body enough to have that clear perspective. And I just felt that as long as I didn't have that clear perspective, it would be very difficult to claim anything for sure, right? I just had to kind of go all the way eventually to know what it felt like, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. Yes, it does. So back to the desserts and things. Do you think that when they were offering you desserts, it was speaking through their addictions?
Yes, obviously. I mean, it does seem that way for me.
Yeah.
And I think it just really stands out when someone, if we're going to use like some matrix analogies, if someone kind of breaks free from the system, it kind of makes obvious for everyone else that like the rig's up, you know, you can't pretend to not know certain things when there's a living example of that right next to you. So I think it's a natural, maybe not natural, but a normal response to try to reel the person back in
Yes.
so everyone can pretend that everything's normal again. And I do think they do it in a distorted, loving way, or at least they think it's out of love. And that's what really makes it challenging.
If I
Yeah.
may jump in here too, yes, it is very hard, especially like a parent that wants to, still take care of their child and um, culturally as well too. Mothers do tend to like more like in South American stuff want to take care of their boys. I have my mother-in-law is that way, and it's a way they show love. And that's around the whole entire world, but that's just my firsthand experience. Even when I changed, my mom still wants to, can I get you this, can I get you that? It's a way of showing love. So it's a very hard line to walk because you do feel bad saying like, no, I'm sorry, I don't want that, but at the same time, you're looking at your mom or your mother-in-law and you're wanting to, whatever. But I like the way that you've described all of this and hearing your, the short description of your long journey you've been on so far. But this is exactly what we've talked about, where we've said, um, you know start now so that way you're not in a crisis. And this is the journey you've been able to go on, where you've been able to, have some cooked foods, then go back to your raw, and then, kind of bounce back and forth a little bit. And I mean, you didn't even, like you were saying, you didn't have to give up the meats right away. It just came. And listening to how your body started choosing the raw foods and whatnot over the processed foods and stuff. So that's amazing. And that's what we try to preach of: do it now before you make it to the crisis mode where your only option is, the fruits and the dark grapes, and you're fighting for your life.
That's so important to bring that up, because within this community of ours, it really is what usually leads people to explore it, right? You do out of desperation once they get to that point that if you don't go all in, then your life is in danger. And I do like to preach about the gentle and gradual approach, because, well, it's the same thing we heard when we were back in school, right? You should study a little bit every day instead of wait until the night before the test to try to cram everything at once and pull an all-nighter. And most people end up waiting until that last moment, right? That desperation. But there's always a few things that we can start implementing, like now, literally. And that's why also I wrote the books in gentle, in different tones, right? There's the mindful eating, there's the Breatharian game plan, and there's a lot in between to kind of meet people where they are. And just to bring that awareness that you so beautifully pointed out to, that we really should start today. Like, there's no excuse to not do a little bit, however small it could be, and just start finding our own balance, our own rhythm of change, because we all want to be healthy, we all want to enjoy life. And I do acknowledge that it's difficult to change, but I think it's less about how difficult it is to change and to how much we are trying to change at once. So if we find the speed of change that is agreeable to our personality, our present circumstances, then there's always something that everyone can do a little bit over time. And the sooner we start, the less we will suffer.
Agreed. Agreed. So we haven't really talked about the skin issues. Are you comfortable talking about that and how long it took, as time went by, the changes you saw in your skin?
Sure. Just for background, I think it was around 12 or 13 that I started having some acne issues. And around 16, it was really bad, like the face, the chest, the back. I think they
Mhm.
have another name for that one, but I just like eczema, maybe.
Okay.
I just had I ended up taking lots of antibiotics, and I even took that worst one. I'm pretty sure I haven't really detoxed all of these substances yet.
Mm.
Um, by the way, um, I don't know the name in English, but I think anyone listening, if you Google like the worst antibiotic or medicine for acne, it's that one, and I took that. So, well, that's a whole other conversation. But even that, after a year, it came back, so it didn't solve anything.
Mhm.
Um, so at the end of 2014, I started being more mindful of what I ate, and I started eating less meat and dairy. It was at the end of 2015 that I quit them completely. And during that year, I did see some improvement, but not a lot. But it was enough to motivate me to stop it. And I remember that in the first few months, actually, it was weird because in some ways my skin was getting better, but in other ways I was getting these rashes too. Like there was some large ones, but I actually don't know how to explain this. I understood that my body was detoxing. My mother was actually a little concerned at first. She thought that I had to go back to the dermatologist, but I was like, no, 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 no. After this last few months, seeing the improvement that happened, I knew for sure that I was not going to visit a dermatologist again after all of these years of nothing really working. And I went to several dermatologists over time, but I think there was a 6 month period where I had this larger rashes, but they didn't feel like they didn't hurt. They didn't feel like a problem. I could see that they were the body detoxing, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
And then it just it's weird to look in hindsight because things just started improving gradually to the point that I don't really think about that I used to have really bad skin issues. It's so in the past now. But it really just ditching the dairy and the meat, that was the biggest thing for me. And less processed foods, less oils, all of these things. Um, After I went more into raw foods and fasting, then it was really crazy because you start getting younger again. Sometimes I would get amazed at myself a few days into a fast, and the skin would just keep getting smoother. And I was like, I don't remember the last time my skin was this smooth, maybe as a child. So sorry, I kind of went on a tangent and I forgot the details of your question. Um,
So it was about your skin and how it changed over the years, or did it change right off quick, or
yeah. It was gradual. It was gradual, but I could see that anytime that I went more than just a few days or a week on like 100% raw foods, not even 100% raw foods, but mostly fruit or juices or water fasting, I would see these huge leaps. Otherwise, just focusing on mainly vegan dishes, it seemed to have a gradual improvement. The more I increased the raw foods and the fasting, the faster it changed. So I could see these periods where there were jumps thanks to the raw foods and the fasting.
and can you explain how that happened? Like when you're fasting, right? It's just liquids.
Yes.
Uh, so for the people out there watching, it was fasting that changed your skin the quickest.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, and why do you think that happened?
Well, I think our body is always attempting to heal and detoxify itself. And I think Toni would be able to talk this a lot better than me. But from what I understand, most of the toxicity of our body is eliminated through the kidneys. And I know that a lot of our metabolic waste is also eliminated through breathing. But then once our body is overwhelmed, it start using the skin or anything else to eliminate the excess, right? If the channels of elimination are not flowing very well. And I think this is also one of the reasons that people get overwhelmed, and the importance of what we were talking about doing this gradually, right? Because if you go too hard on yourself, you could start detoxing too fast and it could be unsustainable. Whereas if we find our own pace, we can actually make this a lifestyle.
Yeah,
And
that go ahead.
go on.
So yeah, that is one of the issues is we see it as a diet, not as a lifestyle.
Mhm.
Would you agree with that?
Oh, yes, obviously. It makes sense to me
Yeah.
because especially once we consider that most of us have lived in this way for 20, 30, 40 or plus years, it doesn't make sense to think that, a 21-day detox is going to fix it. I really see it as a lifestyle. Even if we could say do a 90-day protocol of eating only grapes or juice feasting, that's going to be very, very, very transformative, but it's still not going to really address the deeper issues from my perspective. Well, I just threw a number up there, and there are many factors involved, but I do think it's important to see it as a lifestyle, and that there will be a transition, and that transition is what most people struggle with as well.
Yeah, the question often is, how long should I detox? And that is actually something that you cannot even answer because it will be different from anyone. or for everyone. It is the whole detox thing is such an how do you say that? A heavy word now, because wherever you look, the internet, magazines, stores, health food stores, even the grocery store around the corner, they have detox products, or they have keto safe or keto approved products. And people really, they want to detox, they want to get healthier, but then they want to know, how long should I do this? And this is where we have to teach. It is, it's a lifestyle. Your body, once your body gets cleaner, it doesn't want to go back to before. It doesn't want those kind of foods, and your body will absolutely let you know. By feeling discomfort. But then you need to, it is the listening to the body. What does it want? What does it need? And what I mentioned earlier is that my body doesn't always agree with my taste buds. But it definitely lets me know. It's like, nope, this is not the food that you should be eating anymore. And you're correct. We detox to whatever opening in the body it can be, if it's not through the kidneys, because our kidneys are so weak, and it's like a plugged up filter. We know that we filter at least somewhat, but not enough to get all the junk out. And I like what you say, and you did it over the years, and I actually did that too. And that was in my research, as in what would work for me. Only I didn't incorporate the fasting as frequently as I do now. Although I came across an article from Lauren Whiteman, who's following the natural hygiene procedures. She's not a fan of fasting. And she is clear that after 2, 3 days of fasting, your body starts to call it, well, I don't want to say eat away your muscles, but your muscles are getting weaker. I like water fasting. I've done it many times. I didn't notice anything in getting weaker. But what is your experience with that, Luccas?
Well, I do think that there's a minor misconception sometimes, because I think when we're getting into a fast, the body just starts using most of its energy towards detoxing and healing. So maybe someone feels that they have less energy to exercise, for instance, but I never felt my muscles actually getting weaker. It was just an overall rearrangement of energy or relocation. And I think many people also forget that the substances that they're consuming are very stimulating. So anyone that stops drinking coffee or sugar or anything else will feel a difference in their energy levels. And I think sometimes it's not even that strength as much as the energy. And that this is why I keep going back to the breath, because I think once we're like in detox mode, there's a lot being put in circulation to be eliminated. And for me, energy is all about efficient flow. So once we're detoxing more intensively, we may feel weaker, but we're not actually weaker. It's just that there's more traffic in the system, and we really have to be patient with ourselves, or find a pace of detoxing that it's easier for us. And this is why I really love juice feasting as opposed to water fasting in some cases, because we're drinking several liters of juice, and that makes it very easy to assist the body with eliminating all of that toxicity, because most of us are in a state that's just really toxic if we think of the average person. But then again, it's different for everyone, right? For some people, juice feasting may be the answer. For others, maybe they should be eating more raw foods or fruits at first. I really think there's not so much one protocol fits all, and we really have to understand each person on an individual level to say what is best for them. And this is also where our intuition comes into it. I think every person is already more or less aware of the next step that they should take or the next thing they should stop eating, for instance. And this is also going back to what you Gary asked before. I think I think I already explained why I think that the fasting really helped with getting the skin corrected and getting smoother and healthier, because it just makes it more efficient to hydrate the body and eliminate the toxicity. I think that really happens in a very powerful and efficient way when we're drinking juices as opposed to eating or just drinking water. But that has been my personal experience. I know some people seem to thrive on just eating grapes or melons more than fasting. And I know some people really love water or dry fasting, and they will preach it above all else. And maybe our environment could also have something to do with that. I'm here in the tropics, and like we were talking before, I think I can brag about having the warmest climate of us all. I think it's about 90 degrees now. And here it just makes a lot of sense to me to be eating fruits and drinking tons of coconut water, which I actually like more than water and juices. I'm very fond of coconut water. But if I was living elsewhere, maybe there would be a different protocol that would be more suited for me.
So
No, I think, oh,
go
sorry,
ahead.
Gary, go ahead.
When you say coconut water, is it right from the coconut or is it a packaged coconut water?
Well, I'm gonna sound so snobby right now, but I'm not even sure what's what's packaged coconut water. We do have an abundance of coconuts here, so I'm always drinking fresh, those green coconuts.
Yeah, because here you can buy a container with coconut water in it, but I think a lot of it's reconstituted, which means they boiled it down and then they ship it to wherever they're going to ship it, and then they put tap water in it.
Wow.
Which is, yeah. So they do that with most juices here.
Right, I do see that with the juices. Yeah, like I think if someone was desperate, maybe that would be better than eating processed foods, but it's really not the ideal solution that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, we can buy on the farmer's market every Saturday. I buy 2 liters of fresh coconut water. They open up the coconuts right there, but it costs you 17. I think $17 for 1 liter.
What?
Yeah, that's probably it's the juice of about 4 coconuts.
Wow, I'm trying to wrap my mind about around that.
Yeah, that's not something. Yeah, I mean, if you would live on it, but 1 liter is not really that much, and so I
Oh, right.
do it every day. But it is my Saturday, my weekend treat.
Gonna say I'm in the wrong business, Toni. I'm about to come down there and start opening coconuts for people.
Yeah, well, but even I have bought the coconuts myself, and they were like $3 each. That means if you need four coconuts, a reasonable size, and open them then up, then it would still be like $12. So
Yeah.
I actually paid them $4 or $5 for the work and opening them up and put it in a bottle.
Well, it's still better to be investing $17 on coconut water than
Oh,
on
yeah.
a lot of the other things people are buying, right? So even
Right.
if it's not cheap, if we consider the benefits to our health and all of the options, it's not
Yeah,
expensive in relative terms, right?
you are absolutely right. It is, but I can only do it once a week. I have never got found it easy to open up a coconut, and I see these guys doing that, and it's like, oh my God, it looks so easy.
Mhm.
But I was always struggling and opening one up to a point that I gave up.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can. Yeah, there are road stands here where they come with a pickup truck full with coconuts. So they grow here. They grow in the area.
Yeah, we don't have them out here. And we don't have them in Maine either. That's where I'm from originally. So you have to go to the store to get them, and we always get green coconuts. But they cut the top so that you can see the meat and the little indentations, and they make a T handle you can twist it down through there and put straw right through it. It's the same size as a straw. So that's pretty cool. But you're right, they're like $3 or $4 a piece.
Yeah, well, they need to make money too, and that is.
And because now with science and their brilliant ways, they actually around the hotels and stuff, they inject the coconut trees, and they can't grow coconuts because they fall every once in a while. They don't want them falling on people, so they used to have to hire people to climb them and cut the coconuts off. Well, now they're making the tree seedless.
That's very sad. And it just reminded me that a few years ago, they started removing some of the coconut trees from the popular beaches here in Rio de Janeiro.
Yeah.
Because of that, they didn't want it to fall in on people's heads. And I remember when I was a child, 20 years ago, there were lots of coconuts available there. Like, I don't think many people would climb those trees, but we just saw the abundance, right? And now it's gone. Or in other cases, they're just injecting the tree so there are no coconuts. It's really weird.
It is. And we even have seedless lemons now. And if you eat seedless, you become seedless.
That's powerful. Should put that on a shirt. It's true.
Yeah. And that's what they're doing. They're just cutting down everybody's ability to reproduce. And they're doing it by getting rid of a seeded whatever, seedless grape, seedless watermelon, seedless lemons, seedless coconut trees. I mean, it is something that, how do you feel as a way around that? I mean, like growing your own, or I think it takes a long time to grow a coconut tree, doesn't it? I don't know much about coconut trees.
I think it does. I'm not sure about the details either. But I think that's one of the biggest issues we're facing, right? To which degree do we want to find a balance here, or do we just want to buy land and start growing our own food? Because once we see the way things are going, yeah, it just keeps getting weirder, right?
Yeah, and if we'd spent the past 100 years growing food forests, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Well, maybe the conversation of detox, but not seedless things, or the food supply is getting smaller, and it seems like it's getting smaller and smaller.
I would dare say that maybe we wouldn't have the conversation about detoxing either, because if we were living surrounded by fruit trees and nature, we would be so connected that I think intuition, again, things would just start to mostly work itself out somehow. And I think maybe not even 100 years, right? Maybe 20 to 30 years would already be enough to completely transform the world if we started planting fruit gardens everywhere.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They say that the Amazon jungle is just a big food forest.
Yeah, I remember reading about that, and it does make a lot of sense. Looking into permaculture too, it's very interesting to consider what we can do as not even as humans, but as humans working with nature, right? It's very interesting to consider that possibility that it is realistic for the whole of humanity to be living in the tropical range and have enough fruit and land for everyone. If we manage to organize ourselves to make that transition, it's possible, at least.
Do you see a way around? I mean, we have a very small voice in the global community. We have a voice, but it's the media is the one that really has the voice, and they're losing that, and we're gaining more momentum here. Now I forgot my question. So
a revolution or a change?
Yes, I believe we're on the edge of a huge revolution, and hopefully it's going to be a peaceful one.
Yeah.
Uh, and I don't know, I forgot my question, so somebody else, please.
What I think about maybe the best thing that we could do or how to make an impact, something along these lines.
Yeah, yeah. So I wrote this the other day that we have been taught to hate all of the foods that keep us healthy and love all the synthetic foods made from food factories. And how, because we don't have that larger voice yet, how do we get that out into the mainstream? And because people have been brainwashed into believing that fruits, berries, and melons are poison. You know, they're full of sugar. So eat our synthetic sugar. And I just find that hard to believe that they have convinced the whole nation of that, or the whole world, actually, other than where you live.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it's all about perception. Once we like, if someone's consuming drugs and they consume more drugs, they will have that illusion that they're feeling good. And if they stop, they will be detoxing and going through withdrawal symptoms, and they will think that's bad. So it's kind of what happens, right? If people keep eating the synthetical stuff every day, they will have that illusion of everything being okay. Once they're starting to fast or just eating more natural raw foods and vegetables, they will have that first experience of detoxing. And many people, I don't think they want to face the situation that they're in, because it really flips our whole life upside down, right? To contemplate that for 30 years or 50 years we were eating what we were eating and it was doing what it was doing to our body. So it's a very, there's a lot of pressure in opening
Yeah.
ourselves to that. And I think most people would rather not deal with it at all. They would prefer to have their fix and pretend that everything is okay. And on to answer your question, I really do think that, or I like to believe in a way, that our personal revolution is the greatest revolution of all. If we just focus on healing ourselves and being the change, as so many others have said before me, it's just tricky that even if we see a few results in months or a few years, I really think it will take a few years or even a decade of being more committed to this lifestyle for us to really show the world how beautiful this is. Because sometimes people will point out at someone who's maybe 20 days into a detox or water fasting and say, oh, they look terrible, don't do this.
Mhm.
But they don't understand the entirety of the process. And I think that's the biggest change, the biggest challenge, to convey that message and have people understand that there is a period of recalibration where we have to pay for our sins, so to speak. And that's not always going to look pretty. The pretty comes afterwards, but we have to earn it. And the other way, what people are doing, pretending that everything is fine, the older they get, the more medicines or drugs they start to take,
Mhm.
until one day the body cannot handle it anymore and they die. And like you said, they have these lies so sophisticated and convinced people of it, that it is a real challenge to, it's like once we see a bunch of wires tangled, it's like, how do we start untangling that? Because there are so many beliefs and ideas and references that people have about lies regarding to our health and food, that it's unless someone really goes through a more traumatic experience or have a serious health condition, I think most people just do not want to open themselves to the
Right.
idea that almost everything that they believe to be true is wrong. So I really do think that being the example and showing the examples is the best way of going about it, which has an element of patience to it.
I was listening to Congress yesterday, and they said that between 60 and 70% of the people in America are in a chronic state of dis-ease or disease. I call it disease. I don't believe in disease.
Mhm.
The frequencies. Uh, and that we can change those frequencies through our breath. Um, so how long did you, or how long have you been doing yoga?
Okay, I started practicing yoga in 2015 or 16, but I'll be honest that as far as the deep breathing, pranayama, breathwork exercises, I only started getting consistent with it in 2019.
Uh-huh.
So it has been, wow, almost 6 years now.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Because well, I teach Qigong and breath work, and,
That's awesome.
and thank you. And yoga, light stretching, all that, Qigong, it's just moving the body so that it can be more fluid, so the energy can flow through and breaking barriers, dense tissue, and things like that. Because the body, you're right, the body wants to heal itself, but the mind gets in the way. And what's influencing the mind is the media, and they are so powerful. But they're losing their power because more and more people are getting sick, and people are starting to wake up. So I think that's one of the benefits that we have. And we had talked earlier, when we go into a detox situation and then we stop, we kind of fall back asleep again and go back to the diet that made us sick in the first place. And we're not actually healed. You do a 10-day fast or a 20-day fast or a 30-day. I've done 30. Uh, your body's not completely healed. It feels better
Mhm.
because you're getting rid of all the sludge. But um, so, what kind of yoga do you do, or would you recommend?
Wow. Well, I actually only did a few months of classes until my teacher had to move.
Yep.
And I was a bit devastated at a time, but then I realized, oh, there's all of these yoga videos on the internet. And then I
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
decided to buy some books and kind of self teach
All
myself.
right.
Sometimes I don't even like to call it yoga. I call it more
Right.
just practice, I'm just practicing. And it's a combination of isometrics with stretching. And of course, there's the spiritual aspect of it and everything. But I think most people would benefit from just doing a few basic stretches every day.
Hmm.
And I like to focus on the joints and the spine
Yes.
primarily, because if we keep our spine healthy, then that's
Right.
already a game changer. And I love that you brought up Qigong and breathing exercises too, because that's so important. And whether someone's doing Qigong or yoga, whatever modality of
Hmm.
energy dance they choose to do, it's all about keeping the body fluid, right?
Hmm.
Flexible. And I love to make this analogy that if we look at babies, they're soft and supple, they're hydrated. And if we look at more elderly citizens, they're stiff, right? So it's very clear. It's like we're looking at a grape and a raisin. So the
Hmm.
people just get dehydrated and stiff as they age, and that's mostly because of what they're eating. But I think it's very important to bring that mental component of it, and to really remember that it's not just about eating fruits and vegetables, it's also about having a more holistic lifestyle, being aware of our breath, making sure our body is healthy, which does involve some exercising and movements, whatever one prefers to do. I'm very fond of Qigong too. So I think it really is something that should be, have more awareness brought to it, because even if you don't change your diet that much, if you are moving your body and breathing in a more intelligent manner, a lot of the blockages already start getting dissolved, and there's great things that we can do with that alone. And if we combine the two, then now we have something very powerful.
I agree, because if we don't control our breath, somebody else does. And that's usually why we're in fight or flight,
Exactly.
which, shuts down, doesn't totally shut down, but the blood you need to digest and think and for your lungs and your heart and the oxygen going into your blood, you, you have to move and breathe to create that. Um, so do you have a favorite breath or stretch that you do?
Mhm. Well, I have to say that my favorite posture is actually a headstand, just being upside down.
Wow.
Yeah. Um,
Yep.
I really fell in love with that. I really love bridges too, when you're just, I think it's called the wheel pose, maybe. The basic bridge where you're just really giving that really good stretch to your spine and your neck. I
Hmm.
actually posted a picture of me doing that like 2 weeks ago. I'm not sure if Toni saw that, but I would say those two. Really, anything that's stretching the spine, that would be my
Yep.
favorite, and the bridge being that one. As far as breathing, though, I've done a lot of breathing exercises and pranayama and different techniques, but right now, what I really love the most is just relaxing and making it as silent, as smooth, as gentle and long as possible. So like I think my limit right now is something like 15-ish second inhales and exhales. So like 2 breaths per minute, more or less, and
Hmm.
just relaxing in that state without any stress or forcing anything. Although I do think there's a lot of benefit to different techniques. As far as my favorite ones goes is just making the breath as long as possible, I would say.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. And to me, the slow breath is the most important one because our
Mhm.
bodies and our whole digestive system is like just churning, right? It's
Mhm.
under stress. And when we're doing the long, slow, deep breaths and exhales, I think it gives the body, and we give the body permission to relax because it has to do what we tell it. Uh, that there's more control there as far as like helping your body get rid of impingements. Every emotion is attached to a breath. So as we're doing these breaths, we're moving through those emotions, and we can release those, and that's huge.
I feel that. Actually, during all of these years, especially back in 2019 and 2020, when I was starting to be more committed to it, doing it every day, there are many moments where I was just crying when I was doing the breathing exercises, and I didn't even know why. I just felt the release. So there's a lot going on, even without us being necessarily aware of it, which is really cool. And I really do think that the relaxation is a very important point, especially if we consider all the stress that's everywhere, the fear in the media. Everything is designed to keep you on that fight or flight stage,
Yes.
and we're not supposed to be that all the time. It's something for emergencies, right? The base of
Right.
we should be in a more relaxed, and I think that there's confusion in there because sometimes people think of relaxation and they think of just complete relaxation, but there's an element of alertness and being alive there that's not spoken about too much. So like we can be relaxed but alert and engaged at the same time, and I think finding that balance is very important.
Oh, me too. And it's going to be different for each person because the level of stress or whatever. And our minds are so good at stuffing the emotion down, so we don't even remember we have it because we have to
That's a good
move
point.
on, right? We have to
Mhm.
move forward. So, uh, doing those breaths and helping that body relax just through. Now, I will say, I have tried to do a breath where you can't feel air going in your nose, and I'm not very good at it, which means I have stress somewhere. And um, so I keep going back to it, even though I'm not very good at it. And over time, that will release it. And I feel that my body will relax even more. Although everybody tells me I'm a pretty relaxed guy, but um, but I know there's more in there, and the energy. See if you agree with this. The more stress you get rid of, the more energy permeates from your heart, from your body.
I
And
love that.
and you're like this light bulb that's getting brighter and brighter and brighter. You can't see it, but other people can feel it.
Yeah, I would say maybe something along the lines of the more we get rid of the tension and the blockages, the more integrated our system becomes. So the circulation is improved. And I think we just restore more coherence to the system. So our energy becomes more powerful, basically. It's like if we are comparing a symphony, maybe a piece of music, imagine if there was a lot of static and noise and it was distorted. It wouldn't be very, very powerful or pleasant to listen to. But the more we get rid of the static and they just have that beautiful, coherent melody, then there's a lot more power that we're going to feel from that. So that's an analogy that I would try to make because I understand or I feel what you just said about the energy. I'm just not sure I can find the best words to explain that from my perspective. But
Yeah,
it really
that's
go
right.
on.
That's kind of the thing about energy is we can't see it,
Yeah,
and when our body is healthy, we can't feel it.
yeah, that's true.
And,
I think I wrote once before, the better we feel, the better we heal. Well, the healthier we get, the better we feel, but that not just feeling better, but also our sensitivity improves. So that's very, very interesting. And I really see it also as like the breath permeating in our whole body. I loved what you talked about the tension because it really is the more we relax, the more we notice parts of our body that were not as relaxed as we thought. And that's also something that I noticed with the fasting is that people think that they just have a little bit of toxicity to purge, but the deeper you go into it, the more you realize that, oh, there's still some tension there. There's still some tension there.
mm,
There's still some tension there. And the deeper we go into it, we just realize that like the deeper it is, and we just keep going into this rabbit hole that is ourselves. And I love the relaxation aspect of it because I see many parallels with my own practices and what I'm doing. So
mhm.
that's a cool exchange to have.
So when people change their diet that's different than the normal diet, do you feel isolated from other people? And is that how you find the time to write your books?
Yeah, we could say so. It's like I love to use these analogies of the Matrix and the Truman Show. I'm not sure if everyone is familiar with that movie.
Yep, I am.
So
Yep.
it's like and 2020 made that very obvious, walking around without a mask and seeing everyone going with the program. It just really felt like, wow, I'm living in a different world than the rest of the people.
Hmm.
And I do think there's that expression, right? Trauma bonding. And I think for many people, eating is just that these events, these celebrations, there's almost nothing that happens that doesn't have food as the center of it, even if people don't acknowledge it. Just imagine a Christmas or anything without food. People would feel weird. They wouldn't know like how to be, I think. And I think that's something we need to restore. Not to say that food itself is a problem, but changing our relationship with it. I think it would be a fundamental aspect of us being healthier as a society. I forget your question.
Well, that's okay. Uh, I just had another one come through here. Uh, and now I can't remember it. So, so when the question was how you handle the isolation, if there is any, in your, because when you change your diet and you don't eat what people normally eat, they tend to go away, or you go away. And is that how you found time to write your books?
Yeah, that disconnection is real. It really, over the past few years, I actually have basically lost contact with all of my friends, like literally everyone I grew up
Yeah.
with or met in life. And it has been this very weird space, especially because I'm in Brazil and I started researching all of these things in English. So I'm thinking in English throughout the day and writing in English, but in my daily life, I'm meeting people speaking in Portuguese that are living a very different life than me. So that's something that I'm actually attempting to balance because I have been living more like an urban hermit for the past few years.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I interact with people on a daily basis, but there's not that real connection happening. And it's funny because people love me, cashiers, random workers, people on the street. I just greet them with smiles, sometimes with chat, and I can feel that I make an impact on them. It's very interesting how energy is contagious. I have no idea how often it happens that I just know that someone's not having a great day, maybe they're not very happy with their life, and once I leave, they're smiling. And it's cool to see how I'm making little impacts in other people's lives, however superficial it may be. But yeah, I'm not sure I have an answer to that because I've been thinking about relocation and where exactly I want to live because it's not really sustainable to continue here much longer. And like you said, you just can really connect with others who are on a very different lifestyle. I think it's a real challenge to find that middle ground because if you're not
And
eating the same thing, it just becomes very difficult. It's like different frequencies.
yeah, they are definitely different frequencies.
Mhm.
So I guess how would you, this to me is why most people won't detox. So they won't change their diet completely because they'll lose their friends and they don't want to lose their friends, even though they'll find new ones. Uh,
Mhm. Better ones, possibly.
yeah, yes, possibly. Yep. Uh, a more gentle, kinder friend
Mhm.
that is,
Yes.
because most fruitarians and vegans are gentle.
Yes.
They're just gentle people. They have such incredible energy, and when you go out in public, people feel that, and that's why they love you. But if you actually went to their house to have a meal, you'd be almost like an outsider
Yes.
because you're not eating what they're eating, and that's one of the biggest challenges I think we have is we've got the media, chemically laden foods that are addicting, which is why we can't get away from cooked food,
Mhm.
and or that people can't get away from cooked food. Um, so that's why it's been such a slow integration into the vegetarian or vegan lifestyle. To me, is people are afraid that they don't want to lose their friends. I guess that's the bottom line. Is the and it happens. It it definitely happens. You become almost like an outsider in your own community.
Yeah, I definitely saw that. And I had really weird experiences of like my friends would have a barbecue and I would bring my
Yeah,
fruit. And it
yeah,
was just so weird because I made an attempt
yeah,
and like they were welcoming to the most of
yeah.
it, but it was like we were talking different languages almost. It just like there wasn't much common ground for us. Like even I noticed that even the subjects, the things that people talk about, their perspective are just so very different. And I just saw that throughout the years, I just didn't enjoy my being with my friends as much as I did.
Right.
One of my very dear friends has an expression that sometimes it's better to love people from a distance.
Mm-hmm.
And I found myself doing just that. Like, I still love them,
Right.
but it just doesn't make sense to, like, there's not enough common ground for us to have experiences together, at least not very frequently. And then 2020 happened, and I saw that all of them were like going along with the agenda, and then it was even more difficult to just tag along and be, because of all the judgment and everything, and that was very serious, right? If I thought the food was hot, imagine when people saw you walking around without a mask and everything.
Yes.
That really created more and more separation.
Yes, because I did the same thing. I didn't wear a mask. I did go to the bank once and I put a mask, but I put it under my nose and I breathed through my nose. And this policeman said, "Do me a favor and put that up over your nose." And I said, I find it really strange that when I was a kid, if I walked into a bank wearing a mask, I'd either be on the floor or dead. And now I can't come in here without one.
That's a good one. Yeah.
So,
Wow. Things really
so
got upside down.
yeah, yeah, it flipped the whole world upside down, and I think that's part of what woke people up is
Mhm.
wait a minute, and now we're really going wait a minute because well, we don't need to get into that, but uh, so what is your favorite detox? Is juice? Is juicing or
Yeah, I think
do you,
so. I mean, personally, I might have to go with coconut water right now, but overall, I would say juices. Yes, I think
okay?
it's the
Yeah, I love coconut water from the coconut. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. I mean, in World War II, they used to do blood transfusions with coconut water right out of the
yeah,
coconut.
it's
'Cause-
just so amazing. I don't even know
yeah,
how to describe it. It just feels like the perfect water to drink even.
yeah, it really quenches your thirst too, which is
Hmm.
now. Do you use the meat out of the coconut?
Oh, that's a funny thing. I actually don't enjoy it too much. Sometimes I would make coconut milk or eat it, but most of the time I don't really eat that.
Okay.
Feels like a bit of a waste, but
Yeah, I don't know what to do with it either. I've had some of it, but it's pretty hard to chew
yes, yeah.
because it's tough.
Hmm.
Um, Coconut cream pie, I guess, but that is vegan.
Guys, we are already reaching almost an hour and a half.
Oh man.
So, yeah, and I know you guys can keep going on for hours.
Yeah.
Like,
I
Go
did
for
have something I did want to input before we sign off. So when you're done, Tony.
no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say too that, you know, our friends do fall off, but I do, you know, go through the Bible with Katie and, you know, his teachings that we've learned from Charlie and Bill Donahue and even Santos. But, you know, it's thy eye be single, and the path is that of the straight and narrow. I mean, not everybody can fit down that single path with us,
Right.
and that's okay. I mean, God called some of our strongest warriors to stand up and lead that. And many of us feel like we're on an island alone. And I love that you said that you meditate every morning, because prayer technically is meditation, and most people don't know how to pray. You know, we're not supposed to ask for things because he already knows everything we ever could possibly need or want, and he's provided us with all of that, but we've gotten lost and distracted. So as our friends do fall off and even our family members fall off, you know, I live amongst people that, you know, still eat meat, and they think I'm crazy and weird and stuff, but I've been like this for years, and that's fine with me. I always look at it that I'm a guiding light, and, you know, I don't want to say like a beacon of hope or something like that, but it's like that last shining light that's in that area. And sometimes I get so afraid to leave because then I'm afraid that that light will be extinguished. And it is hard. And you know, I do have a very loving family though that does love me and stuff like that, and they make all kinds of accommodations for me. So I'm very grateful for all of that. But just know that the path is very narrow and it can be very lonely, and that's why not everybody can do this. That's why it's not so popular. People would rather be on the carnivore or keto diet where everybody's together. It's very much has a lot of camaraderie and stuff like that. So just stay strong. You're doing amazing and you're spreading the word. And I hear your gentle, kind, friendly energy, even just through the phone. And that's the energy that we need in this world. And this is what will help level our world up to the next level we all need to go to. So I'm very happy to be part of this. And just people that are listening, sometimes it can be lonely, but everything you ever needed is within inside yourself. And God is always with you. And, all of our energies are all with each other. Sometimes we can't feel it, but if I know you were talking about you thought about possibly moving to or relocating, but in your meditations, God will tell you, or whatever you call it, will tell you when it becomes time. And the more time you spend within and listening and being silent, the stronger you will hear the voice of telling you what to do and when to do it. So thank you so much for all your books, all your posts, and all of your information. And same thing to you and Toni as well too, Gary.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sara.
There is something I would like to end with, and that is something that Luccas wrote. And it is in one of the comments to his post. He wrote it. All of the superfoods and hacks you could possibly need. Sunshine, stretching, expansive music, breathing more efficiently, pure water, nature, expanding awareness, introspection, meditation, qigong, hugs, nourishing and love-centered relationships, holistic movements, and of course your books. And I want to add one more, and that is your smile, Luccas. Because I know what you mean, and you may think that your smile to somebody or even look somebody in the eyes that you meet and acknowledge them, that will change their life. And I see people, smiling at me. It's like complete strangers, and it is those are beautiful moments, and I cherish them, and I'm sure you do too. You already mentioned that. So thank you for being here. I think there will be a lot more to talk about in the future. So we hope that you will be joining us sometime soon again. And I would urge everyone to go to Luccas's Facebook, because it will help you to keep going. It will help you to even be accountable, even this way. And you can actually read him for consultations. Gary or me follow Sara and Katie. Both their links to their Facebooks are also listed at the bottom of the description. So you have always a way to reach any of us, and we keep looking forward to Luccas's books. They are amazing. So thank you all for being here. Much love to you all, and until the next time.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Luccas.
Thank you. I mean, everything that Sara and Toni just said was so perfect. I'm not sure I even want to add anything to it. It was my pleasure being here.
Thank you.
And
I'm smiling to you all.
thank you so much.